All right, folks, this one's gonna hit hard. You think you've seen it all after a few decades, but sometimes life throws you a curveball so twisted it makes you question everything. Imagine being married for 10 years, thinking you know your wife inside and out. Then one night, one text message blows the whole thing wide open. But here's the kicker. It wasn't just about the cheating. Oh no. She had a secret, something so dark, so buried, it went back years. And it wasn't just her keeping it, his own family was in on it too. One night he found out the truth, and trust me, it wasn't just a broken marriage, it was a revelation that completely tore his world apart. What you're about to hear is a story about betrayal, lies, and a family secret that nobody saw coming. Get ready because this is one you'll be thinking about long after it's over.
You know that feeling when something's wrong, but you can't put your finger on it? It's like a shadow lurking in the corner of your eye. Always just out of reach, just enough to make you question yourself. That's how it started with Jenna. But this isn't one of those stories where the guy is clueless, where he's the last one to figure it out. No, I knew something was off. I just didn't know what. Yet, we've been married 7 years, together for 10. And up until 6 months ago, I thought I knew my wife. I thought I knew who she was, who we were. But the thing about cracks is they start small, and if you're not looking close enough, you miss them. You don't see the fault lines until it's too late, and by then, the whole damn thing is already crumbling beneath you. The first crack was subtle, real subtle. Jenna started staying late at work. Nothing crazy, just an hour here, 2 hours there. She had a new project on her hands, she said. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? We had trust, or at least I thought we did. But then her phone started becoming this forbidden object. Always face down, always on silent. When I'd walk into the room, she'd turn it off, lock it without missing a beat. I joked about it once. Babe, what's the deal? You running a secret spy agency now? I laughed, trying to keep it light. She smiled. No, she smirked and said, oh, come on, don't be ridiculous. It's work stuff. You wouldn't care. Something in the way she said it hit me wrong. But I shrugged it off because what else was I supposed to do? Start a fight over nothing? That's what I thought it was. Nothing. Until last Tuesday. It was late. Jenna was out. Some work event, she said. It's mandatory, she texted me earlier. I'll be home by 11. Love you. 11 came and went. No yene. Midnight. Still nothing. I tried calling. Straight to voicemail. Now, you gotta understand, Jenna is always glued to her phone. If she wasn't answering, it wasn't because she didn't hear it. She was ignoring me. My chest tightened, but I told myself to relax. She's just busy, I muttered. It's fine. But at 12:30, I couldn't sit still anymore. I grabbed my keys, decided to take a drive. Maybe she got caught up with colleagues. Maybe she'd appreciate the gesture. But before I even got to the door, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I stopped. I stared. It wasn't like her to leave her phone behind. Not Jenna. I picked it up. The screen flashed with a message. Greg. That name. Greg. The guy from her office she'd laughed about. The one she insisted was just a harmless flirt. Miss you already. My blood turned to ice. Miss you? Already? Where had she been? Who had she been with? The questions exploded in my head. But before I could even process it, the front door opened. And there she was. I turned, holding her phone, the message still lighting up the screen between my fingers. Jenna froze for half a second, just long enough for me to catch that flicker of panic in her eyes. And then, like she'd flipped a switch, she smiled. That same easy smile she always wore. But it felt wrong. Everything about her felt wrong in that moment. Hey, babe, she said, slipping off her shoes like it was any other night. You're up late. She didn't even acknowledge the phone in my hand. I didn't say anything. I just held it up. The message spoke for itself. Miss you already. Her smile faltered just a fraction, but then there it was again. That smirk. That condescending look like I was some fool she could toy with. What? She said, her voice light, too light. It's not what you think. My throat tightened. Then what is it, Jenna? My voice was calm. Too calm. It surprised even me, because I'm really curious what part of this I'm supposed to be misunderstanding. She laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that cut through the room like a knife. You're being ridiculous. Greg and I were just grabbing drinks after the event. It's nothing. You're overreacting. As usual. As usual? I stared at her, trying to read her face, but there was nothing there. Just that smirk. That unbothered, untouchable look. But here's the thing. Jenna forgot one important detail. If she was at drinks with Greg, how was her phone on the counter? How could he be texting her now, missing her? Before I could say anything, she brushed past me, heading for the bedroom. Just like that. Like this was some minor inconvenience, and she was done entertaining it. I stood there, watching her walk away. My heart pounded in my chest, but my mind, it was sharp, focused. This wasn't over. No, this was just the beginning. The air felt heavy after Jenna disappeared into the bedroom, but the silence was louder than any confrontation I'd imagined. I stood there, still gripping her phone, Greg's message burning into my hand. Miss you already. It echoed in my head like some sick joke. I should have followed her, should have marched right into that room and demanded answers. But instead, I found myself stuck to the spot, staring at her phone like it held the whole truth. And maybe it did. My heart was hammering in my chest, but my mind was clear, sharper than it had been in weeks. I couldn't shake that feeling, that something wasn't right, that her smile didn't match her words. And the thing that hit me hardest was that this was the woman I thought I knew better than anyone. How long had I been this blind? I needed proof. I needed something solid, something that wasn't just vague messages or her smug, dismissive attitude. And her phone, well, it was sitting there, practically begging me to dig deeper. I unlocked it. The thing is, Jenna and we never hid stuff from each other, at least not before. We'd shared passcodes, not because we needed to, but because it didn't matter. There was never anything to hide. Until now. I went straight to her messages. Scrolled down to Greg's name. My hands shook, but I had to know. The truth, no matter how bad, was better than the suffocating doubt that had been crawling under my skin for weeks. There they were, the texts. At first, it was nothing, just work stuff, harmless banter. But as I scrolled back through the weeks, through the months, the tone shifted. They started texting late at night. Stuff about grabbing a drink. After work turned into I can't wait to see you again. Inside jokes, flirty comments. But then there it was, hidden between the lines, what I had feared the most. It wasn't direct, no. They were too careful for that. But there was enough there to paint a picture, one I didn't want to see. Last night was incredible. I froze. My hand tightened around the phone. Last night? I stared at the date on the message. The night she told me she was working late. The night she kissed me goodnight and climbed into bed like nothing had happened. I felt sick. The room spun for a second as my mind tried to catch up with the reality unraveling in front of me. Jenna wasn't just lying. She was living a whole second life, one she thought I'd never figure out. But now I had the proof. I was about to confront her when something else caught my eye, another message. But not from Greg. This one was from her mom. It popped up at the top of the screen, a fresh notification that said, "Are you going to tell him? Or do you want me to?" My breath caught in my throat. What? Tell me what? This wasn't just an affair. There was something else, something deeper, something that Jenna's mom knew, and from the sound of it, it was something I needed to know. I stormed into the bedroom, my mind racing. Jenna was already in bed, scrolling on her iPad like nothing was wrong. The way she casually looked up when I walked in, with that same mask of indifference, it made my blood boil. "You're not going to tell me what?" I spat, holding up her phone. Her face dropped, just for a second. Her eyes darted to the phone, then back to me, trying to calculate how much I knew. "What are you talking about?" She played dumb. Of course she did, but I wasn't playing games anymore. "Your mom," I said, pointing at the message still on the screen. "What does she mean? What the hell am I supposed to know, Jenna?" For the first time in weeks, the smirk fell away completely. Her expression hardened. There was no panic this time, just coldness. She sat up in bed, her eyes narrowing at me like I was the one intruding, like I was the one crossing the line. "You're reading my text now? Seriously? Do you even hear how pathetic that is?" She shot back, her voice dripping with venom. "You're sleeping with Greg," I said, my voice low, holding the phone out as evidence, though at that point I didn't need it. The truth was hanging between us, impossible to ignore. "And now your mom is saying there's more? What else haven't you told me, Jenna? What the hell are you hiding?" She didn't deny it. Not the affair, not the texts. Instead, she sighed, Like she was annoyed that we were even having this conversation. Like she was bored of it. "Phoenix, you want to know everything?" she said, swinging her legs out of bed and standing up, facing me head-on now. "Yes, I've been seeing Greg. But that's not the worst of it." "Not the worst of it?" My mind raced. What could possibly be worse? She stepped closer, her face inches from mine now. "There's something you've been too blind to see for years, Nick. Something that's been right under your nose this whole time." My stomach tightened. "What are you talking about?" She smiled again, but this time it wasn't smug. It was cruel. Cold. Like she was about to drop a bomb that she'd been holding on to, just waiting for the perfect moment to detonate it. "Do you remember the accident? The one that killed your sister?" Her voice was low, deliberate. My heart stopped. My mind spun back to that horrible night 5 years ago. The night my sister and her husband died in a car accident. The night that tore my family apart. Jenna knew how much it had destroyed me. She had been by my side through all of it, my rock. Or so I thought. "What about it?" I whispered, barely able to breathe. She leaned in, her eyes locked on mine, and said it. "Your sister's death, it wasn't an accident. And your nephew knows the truth." The ground fell out from under me. Jenna's words echoed in the space between us, twisting the air, suffocating every inch of the room. My mind stalled, stuck between disbelief and raw confusion. Not an accident? My sister's death wasn't an accident? And my nephew, Liam, knew something all this time? No, that couldn't be right. It couldn't. I stared at her, the world tilting sideways as my brain tried to catch up with what she'd just thrown at me. Jenna, standing there, arms crossed, her face dark and twisted with something between satisfaction and contempt. She had dropped a bomb that was about to tear everything apart. She knew it. She wanted it. "Dummy, what are you talking about?" I stammered, my voice coming out weaker than I wanted. "That doesn't make any sense." Jenna didn't flinch. Her eyes narrowed, and she stepped even closer, like she could smell my panic, like she thrived on it. "Oh, it makes perfect sense, Nick. But you're too thick-headed to have noticed. You're always too busy trying to be the good guy, aren't you? The protector. The one who holds everything together. Maybe it's time you finally opened your eyes." My head spun. Liam? How could Liam know something about the crash that took my sister's life? He was in the back seat that night, barely 10 years old. He'd survived without a scratch, but he never spoke about it. Not once. We all thought it was trauma, that the memory was too much for him to process. My parents, the therapists, they all said the same thing. "He'll talk when he's ready." But what if he'd been hiding something instead? No, it didn't make sense. Jenna was lying. She had to be. What does Liam have to do with any of this? I snapped, trying to regain control. But deep down, my stomach churned. My heart raced. I didn't know what was real anymore. Could my wife really be telling the truth? She gave me a look of pure, cold pity. "He was in the car, Nick. He saw everything. He heard everything. You think a kid like him wouldn't know? He knows. He's always known." I shook my head, stepping back like I needed the distance. "You're lying. This is insane, Jenna. Why the hell would you bring this up now? What are you trying to do to me?" Jenna rolled her eyes, like she couldn't believe I was still so dense. "I'm trying to wake you up, Nick. You've spent years living in some fantasy, thinking your precious sister and her perfect life were this tragic accident. But there's more. So much more. And I'm not the only one who knows. My nephew knows." Those words dug into my brain like claws. Liam, now 15, had been distant for years. I thought it was grief, trauma, the weight of losing his parents. I thought it was something that time would heal. He'd never said a word about that night. Not one. Even when I tried to ask him, gently, years ago, he'd just stare blankly, eyes wide with a fear that ran too deep for words. I tried to shake off the horror creeping into my mind. "So, what are you saying? You expect me to just believe this? That Liam's been sitting on some dark secret, and you of all people know about it?" She crossed her arms again, a sly smile tugging at the corner of her lips. She enjoyed this. She was watching me unravel, and she was enjoying it. "I didn't hear it from Liam, if that's what you're thinking. He didn't confess some deep, dark secret to me. No, I've known for a while now. Ever wonder why your family doesn't talk about the accident? Why everything's swept under the rug like it never happened. No one likes to admit the ugly truth, Nick, but it always finds a way out. I felt like I was suffocating, the walls closing in around me. The accident had destroyed my family. My parents never recovered. They rarely mentioned my sister's name. The pain, too unbearable. And Liam? He'd been a ghost of his former self ever since that night. But this was impossible. What truth, Jenna? My voice was raw now. I didn't care if she saw my fear. I was terrified of what was coming next. What are you saying? Was it not an accident? Was someone responsible? Her eyes flickered with something darker. Oh, Nick, you poor thing. You really don't get it, do you? It wasn't just an accident. There was something that happened before that crash. Something that triggered it. I could barely breathe. I needed answers. Now. She stepped closer again, dropping her voice low, like she was sharing the punchline of a long, sick joke. You want to know why your sister and her husband died that night? What really happened in that car? Ask Liam. Ask him about the argument. The argument? My throat tightened. What argument? She tilted her head, her smirk widening. The one your sister had with her husband, right before they hit that tree. Ask Liam what he overheard. He's been holding it in all these years, poor kid. But maybe it's time someone pushed him. Maybe it's time you found out the whole story. I stumbled back, my knees weak, the weight of everything crushing down on me. My sister and her husband had fought that night? That was impossible. I'd never heard anything about an argument. No one had mentioned it. Not the police, not the investigation. But Jenna, how did she know? What are you saying? I whispered, my voice barely holding steady. What happened in that car, Jenna? Her eyes gleamed with cruel delight. She was enjoying every second of this, ripping my world apart, piece by piece. Ask Liam, she said, her voice low, almost a whisper. Because if he tells you the truth, you'll never look at him the same again. I couldn't move. My entire body felt frozen, my mind racing through memories of Liam's haunted silence. The way he'd always avoid talking about the crash. The way he'd look at me, eyes wide, almost guilty. He knew something, and now I had to know. But first, I had to confront the person standing in front of me, the woman who had shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. I took a deep breath, my hands trembling, and I stared right at Jenna. Why are you telling me this now? I demanded, my voice hardening, my pulse pounding in my ears. What do you get out of this? Her smile vanished, and her face hardened into something cold, distant. She wasn't hiding it anymore. Whatever she'd been masking, it was gone. Because, Nick, she said, her voice ice cold, it's time you realize that this whole perfect little world you built, it's built on lies. Your sister, your nephew, our marriage, all of it. You've been blind for too long. And I'm done pretending. I couldn't process it. Not now. Not like this. Without saying another word, I turned and walked out of the bedroom, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know what to do, what to think. All I knew was that I had to talk to Liam, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for what he'd say. The drive to my parents' house felt like a fever dream. The world outside blurred in the night, and my thoughts spiraled deeper with every mile. Liam knows something. That sentence pounded in my head, over and over. What had Jenna meant by the argument? What could Liam have possibly heard that night? When I pulled up to the house, it was past midnight, but the lights were on. My parents had been keeping Liam since the accident. He'd been like a ghost in that house, moving through the halls in silence, his once lively spirit crushed. I could see him now, quiet, withdrawn, always lost in his thoughts. We all figured it was grief, trauma, but was it guilt? Could it really be that? I shook my head, trying to shove those thoughts away. No, he was just a kid. I rang the doorbell, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The door opened, and there was my mom, startled to see me at this hour. "Nick, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice tight with concern. Her eyes scanned my face like she could already tell something was wrong. "I need to see Liam," I said, stepping past her before she could ask any more questions. "Now!" My mom followed me, her voice rising with worry. "Nick, it's late. He's already in bed. What's going on?" But I wasn't listening. I stormed up the stairs and down the hallway, stopping in front of Liam's door. I hesitated for a moment, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Part of me didn't want to do this. Part of me didn't want to believe Jenna's words, that there was something darker beneath the surface. But I couldn't live in that uncertainty anymore. I needed the truth. I knocked gently, my heart pounding. "Liam? It's me. I need to talk to you." There was silence on the other side of the door. I knocked again, this time harder. "Liam, please. Open the door." I heard shuffling, and a few seconds later, the door cracked open. Liam stood there, bleary-eyed, his face pale in the dim light of the hallway. His hair was a mess, his eyes wide with confusion, and something else. Fear. He was afraid. "Uncle Nick? What's going on?" he whispered, his voice small. I stepped into the room and closed the door behind me, my chest tight with emotion. "Liam, I need to ask you about something. Something important." He looked at me, his eyes darting nervously, his body stiffening. He could feel it. He knew. I sat down on the edge of his bed, my hands trembling. "Liam, I know this is hard, but I need you to tell me the truth. About the accident." The moment I said it, his face went white. He didn't speak, didn't even move. Just stood there, frozen, like a deer caught in headlights. "Liam, I need to know what happened that night." My voice broke, and I couldn't hide the desperation anymore. "Your mom and dad, did they argue? Did something happen before the crash?" Liam's eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, I thought he was going to crumble right there. He turned away, his shoulders shaking, and I could hear his breathing quicken. The room was so quiet, the tension so thick, it felt like the walls themselves were closing in. I stood up, walked over to him, and gently placed my hand on his shoulder. "Please, Liam, I need to know. I can't keep living in the dark like this." Liam shuddered, and then, after what felt like an eternity, he spoke. His voice was hoarse, trembling with something deeper than fear. "Regret. They were fighting," he whispered, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. "Mom and Dad, they were fighting before the crash." The room seemed to tilt, and I had to steady myself. Jenna was right. There was an argument. But why? What was it about? I pressed on, my voice barely holding steady. What were they fighting about? Liam's eyes were wide, his lips trembling. He looked like he wanted to run, like he wanted to disappear. But then he said it, the thing that shattered everything. "They were fighting about you." I froze. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Me? What the hell could they have been arguing about that involved me? Liam's breath hitched as he tried to keep himself together. Mom was angry with Dad because of you. She said Dad was keeping something from you, something big. They were yelling, and I didn't understand most of it, but I remember Mom saying, "He deserves to know. Nick deserves to know the truth." The truth? My blood ran cold. What the hell could my brother-in-law have been hiding from me? I was their family. I thought we told each other everything. My voice cracked as I asked the next question. Did they say what it was? Did they say what he was hiding? Liam swallowed hard, his eyes glistening with tears, shaking his head. I don't know. I didn't hear everything. I just remember them yelling, and then Dad swerved. The car, his voice broke completely, and he collapsed into sobs, clutching his chest as though the memory itself was too much to bear. I stood there, frozen, feeling like the floor had been ripped out from under me. All these years, we thought it was just a tragic accident. But it wasn't. There was more. My sister knew something my brother-in-law had been keeping from me, and that argument got them killed. My hands were shaking now, anger and confusion swirling together in a storm I couldn't control. I wanted to scream, wanted to grab someone and demand answers. But there was no one to ask. My sister was dead. Her husband was dead. And the only person who might know the truth was Liam, and he was too broken to give me more. Liam looked up at me through tear-filled eyes, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm sorry, Nick." I didn't know what to do. I was just a kid. I didn't want to tell anyone because I thought it was my fault. My heart shattered at his words. He thought it was his fault. This whole time, Liam had been carrying the weight of this secret, thinking he was somehow responsible for what happened. My chest tightened with guilt. I should have pushed harder. I should have tried to get him to talk sooner. But I didn't. I had failed him. I had failed everyone. But now I had to know what my sister had been trying to tell me. What was the secret that she had died with? As I sat there, trying to piece together the fragments of this nightmare, one thing became clear. Jenna knew more than she let on, and I wasn't done with her yet. I left my parents' house in a daze, the night swallowing me whole as I stumbled to my car. Liam's words echoed in my head, each one a dagger twisting deeper. They were fighting about you, my sister and her husband, arguing about some secret, something he had been hiding from me, and it had killed them. But what was it? I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white with anger and confusion. Jenna had known. Somehow, she had known all of this, and she had kept it from me. And now, she was using it to destroy what was left of my sanity. Why? What did she have to gain by ripping open wounds that were barely healing? There was more to this, there had to be. I slammed on the gas, driving back home as if it would somehow speed up the answers. The house came into view, and I could see the living room light still on. She was waiting for me. I stormed through the door, my heart pounding, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Jenna was sitting on the couch, her legs crossed, looking entirely too calm for someone who had just set fire to my world. She didn't even flinch when I walked in, just glanced up from her phone with a raised eyebrow. "Back so soon?" she asked, her voice dripping with indifference. "Find what you were looking for?" I stared at her, my chest heaving, my fists clenched at my sides. "What the hell do you know, Jenna? Don't play games with me anymore. What were my sister and her husband hiding from me?" She smirked, that infuriating smirk that had become a permanent feature on her face these past few weeks. She stood up slowly, as if she had all the time in the world, and walked over to the kitchen counter where her wine glass sat, untouched. She picked it up, swirling the wine inside like we were having some casual conversation. Like none of this mattered. "Why are you so worked up, Nick?" she said, taking a slow sip of her wine. "Didn't Liam tell you? I thought he might have cracked under the pressure. Poor kid, carrying around a secret like that for so long." I was done. I crossed the room in a heartbeat, standing inches away from her, my voice trembling with fury. "Tell me, now, what did you mean when you said it wasn't an accident? What did you mean when you said Liam knew the truth?" Jenna didn't back down. In fact, she seemed to enjoy the anger radiating off me. Her eyes glittered with a kind of cruel delight, like she was savoring every second of this moment. "Okay, fine," she said, setting her wine glass down. "You want the truth? I'll give it to you." She leaned back against the counter, crossing her arms. "Your sister wasn't as perfect as you thought she was." My heart skipped a beat. "What?" She tilted her head, watching my reaction like she was waiting for the bomb to drop. "You always saw her as the golden child, didn't you? The perfect daughter, the perfect sister, the one who could do no wrong. But she wasn't, Nick. Your sister had secrets, big ones." I couldn't breathe. This wasn't making sense. "What kind of secrets?" Jenna's smile widened. "She was having an affair." The words hit me like a truck. I staggered back, disbelief crashing over me. No, that's not possible. She loved her husband. They were happy. They were lying to you." Jenna cut in, her voice hard and cold. "She was seeing someone else, Nick. For months. Maybe longer. And her husband, your brother-in-law, he found out. That's what the fight was about that night. They were fighting about her affair, about whether or not she was going to come clean to you." I stumbled back, the weight of it all crashing down on me. An affair? My sister? It didn't make sense. It couldn't be true. She would have told me. She wouldn't have kept something like that from me. Would she? I shook my head, trying to clear the fog that was taking over my thoughts. "You're lying." I spat, my voice shaking. "You're just trying to hurt me. This doesn't make any sense." Jenna laughed, a dark, bitter sound that sent chills down my spine. "Oh, I wish I were lying. But no, this is the truth, Nick. Your perfect little sister wasn't so perfect after all. And that argument, the one Liam overheard, that was the moment everything came crashing down. Her husband couldn't handle it. He lost control, and that's why they crashed." I felt like I was going to be sick. My knees gave way, and I sank into a chair, my head in my hands. No, this can't be real." Jenna leaned forward, her voice soft but dripping with malice. "It's real, Nick. All of it. And the best part? Liam knows. He's known this whole time. That's why he's been so distant. He's been carrying the weight of the secret, knowing that his mom wasn't who you thought she was. And now you know too. I looked up at her, my vision blurry with rage and grief. Why are you doing this to me? Her eyes darkened, and for the first time, there was no smirk, no laughter. Just cold, hard truth. Because I'm tired of living in your perfect little world. Tired of pretending. You've spent years playing the good guy, the hero, while ignoring the cracks in everything around you. Well, guess what? Your sister wasn't perfect. And our marriage? That's been a lie too. I stared at her, the words sinking in slowly. You're trying to justify what you've done. The affair. You're trying to make me believe this is all because of me. She shrugged, unapologetic. You were never there, Nick. Not really. You were too busy being the grieving brother, the caretaker, the protector. I was always second place. Always the one holding everything together while you obsessed over your sister's death. I found someone who didn't treat me like an afterthought. That's what I did. I wanted to scream, to shout, to tear everything apart. But all I could do was sit there, feeling the cold weight of betrayal pressing down on me from all sides. My wife, my sister, my nephew, everyone I had trusted had been lying to me in some way. My entire life felt like it had been built on a foundation of deceit. I stood up slowly, my legs trembling beneath me. Jenna watched me, her expression unreadable now. She had said everything she wanted to say. She had broken me down, and she was done. I didn't speak. I didn't scream or shout. I simply turned and walked toward the door, my mind numb. As I reached for the handle, Jenna spoke one last time, her voice low and venomous. You can't fix this, Nick. The truth is out now. There's nothing left to hold on to. I paused, my hand resting on the door. For a moment, I considered turning back, saying something, anything, to break the silence. But there was nothing left to say. I walked out the door, and I didn't look back. The door clicked shut behind me, but it felt like a thunderclap. Each step away from that house felt heavier, like the weight of everything Jenna had said was pressing down on me with brutal force. My mind was a storm. Rage, grief, confusion, all swirling into a hurricane that I couldn't control. I had to get out of there, away from the lies, away from the betrayal. But where could I go? Where could I run when the truth was clinging to me like a second skin? I sat in my car, staring blankly through the windshield at the empty street, Jenna's words still gnawing at the edges of my sanity. My sister had been having an affair. My brother-in-law knew. They fought about it, and that fight, that terrible, heartbreaking argument, had sent them to their deaths. And Liam? He'd been in the back seat, absorbing it all like some twisted sponge, holding the truth in his fragile chest for years. But there was something else, something that Jenna said in passing, something she almost wanted me to ignore. She said my brother-in-law had been keeping a secret from me, something I deserved to know. What was it? What had he been hiding? I couldn't go home, not back to Jenna. The house was a graveyard now, filled with the ghosts of who we used to be. Instead, I found myself driving. I didn't know where I was going until I saw the familiar curve of the road leading me to my parents' house again. It was almost 2 a.m. by the time I pulled into the driveway. The house was dark, except for a single light in the living room window. My parents were probably asleep, but I didn't care. I had to talk to someone. I had to know. I knocked quietly at first, then harder. After a minute, the door creaked open, and there was my mom, her face etched with concern and fatigue. "Nick, what's going on?" she asked, blinking in the dim porch light. "It's late." I stepped inside, unable to wait. "Mom, I need to ask you something. Something about the accident." Her face tightened, and she shook her head, glancing over her shoulder as if the mere mention of it would conjure something terrible. "Nick, we've talked about this. There's nothing more to say. It was a horrible, tragic accident." "No." I cut her off, my voice sharper than I intended. "It wasn't just an accident. There's something I wasn't told. Something about why it happened. About a secret." She looked at me, her eyes narrowing in confusion. "What are you talking about? What secret?" My throat tightened. I felt like I was walking a tightrope, one wrong word from shattering everything. Liam heard them fighting that night before the crash. They were arguing about something. About me. Mom, I need to know what it was. Her face paled, and her hands trembled as she reached for the back of a chair, steadying herself. Liam, he remembers that? Yes, I said, stepping closer, my voice thick with desperation. He told me. He said they were fighting, and Jenna, she said they were arguing about something Dad was hiding from me. What was it? She was silent for a long moment, and I could see the war in her eyes. Whether to keep protecting me or finally let the truth come out. Her lip quivered, and I felt my heart sink as the silence stretched too long. She knew something. Mom, I whispered, my voice breaking, please. She closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, they were full of pain. She sank into the chair, her hands gripping the edges of the armrests like she was trying to hold on to reality. Your sister didn't want you to know. She thought it would destroy you. But your brother-in-law, he felt differently. Know what? I said, barely able to keep my voice steady. She looked up at me, tears forming in her eyes. It's about your father, Nick. Your biological father. I froze. My father? I don't understand. I muttered, taking a step back. What about him? Daddy. He died when I was a baby. She shook her head slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. That's not entirely true. You were never told the full story. The room felt like it was spinning. Mom, stop. What are you talking about? She let out a shuddering breath, the tears now spilling down her cheeks. Your biological father, he didn't die in an accident. He didn't die at all. He's alive. My legs gave out. I collapsed into the chair across from her, my mind reeling. Alive? My father was alive? She continued, her voice thick with regret. Your sister and her husband were going to tell you. They found out he had been trying to contact you, through them, behind my back. He wanted to meet you. But she broke off, burying her face in her hands. I told them to keep it a secret. I thought it was for the best. I didn't want you to be hurt. But they couldn't agree. Your brother-in-law, he wanted to tell you. And that's why they fought that night. I sat there, stunned, the weight of it all crashing down on me. My father, alive, and the crash. I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Was it really just an accident? She looked at me, her face a mask of anguish. Yes, Nick, that part is true. It was just an accident. But it happened because they were so upset, so distracted by the argument. And now they're gone, and she sobbed, unable to continue. I couldn't breathe. All this time, I had been living in the shadow of a lie. My sister had been trying to protect me from a truth I never even knew I needed to hear. And now, because of it, she and her husband were dead. I stood up, my body shaking with a mixture of anger, grief, and something else I couldn't quite name. Where is he? I asked, my voice hollow. She looked up at me, confusion flashing across her tear-streaked face. Who? My father. I said, the words foreign on my tongue. Where is he now? She hesitated, then slowly nodded. I have his last known address. I didn't want to tell you, but she wiped at her eyes and stood, walking toward the drawer in the kitchen. She pulled out an envelope, the paper yellowed with age, and handed it to me. I stared at it, feeling the weight of all the years, the lies, the betrayal pressing down on me. I didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, I pocketed it and walked toward the door. My mother's voice stopped me. Nick, she whispered, her voice trembling. Please don't hate me for this. I turned, looking at her, this broken woman who had been holding on to so many secrets for so long. I don't hate you, Mom, I said quietly. But I need time, and I need answers. And with that, I left the house. The cool night air hit me as I stepped outside, but it did nothing to calm the storm raging inside me. Everything had changed. Jenna's betrayal, the truth about my sister's death, the knowledge that my father was alive somewhere out there. It was all too much. But one thing was clear. I had to find him, and I had to find out why he had stayed away all these years. The truth wasn't done with me yet.
They say that life can change in an instant, but I never truly understood that until now. My name is Michael, and for the past 25 years, I've been married to Laura. We've built a life together. 2 grown kids, a comfortable home, and countless memories. But recently, the foundation of that life has started to crack. and I can't shake the feeling that something is terribly wrong. It all started a few weeks ago when I decided to surprise Laura with a renovation of our old study. She'd always talked about wanting a personal space to read and relax, so I thought converting it would be a nice gesture. While clearing out the clutter, I stumbled upon a dusty box tucked away in the corner of the closet. Inside, I found an old journal, one I didn't recognize. Curiosity got the better of me and I opened it. Flipping through the pages, I realized it was Laura's handwriting from 2 decades ago. At first, it was filled with everyday musings, but then I came across entries that made my heart race. Detailed accounts of secret meetings with someone named Daniel, emotions she never expressed to me, and experiences that shattered my perception of our past. As I sat there, the room spinning around me, I couldn't help but question everything. Was our entire marriage a lie? Had she been pretending all these years? The realization hit me like a freight train. Laura had an affair, and she never told me. That evening, I tried to act normal, but every glance at her felt like a dagger. She seemed unfazed, more engrossed in her phone than usual, occasionally smirking at messages she received. When I asked about her day, she gave me a dismissive shrug and mumbled something about work being stressful. Determined to find out more, I started paying closer attention. I noticed she was frequently working late or going out with friends I'd never heard of. One night, after she claimed she'd be at the office, I decided to drive by her workplace. Her car was nowhere in sight. Feeling a mix of dread and anger, I returned home and waited. She walked in hours later, humming a tune, and didn't even acknowledge me as she headed straight to the shower. The scent of an unfamiliar cologne lingered in the air, a stark contrast to her usual perfume. The next day, I confided in my best friend, David, hoping for some clarity. He suggested I look into our phone records or check her emails for any clues. Part of me felt guilty for even considering it, but I needed answers. That night, while Laura was asleep, I accessed her laptop. Navigating to her emails, I discovered a hidden folder labeled work stuff. Inside were messages that made my blood boil. Intimate conversations with a man named Jason, plans for secret getaways, and even mocking remarks about me. One email stood out. Can't wait to see you tonight. Mike thinks I'm at a conference. He never questions anything, so clueless. My hands trembled as I closed the laptop. The betrayal was deeper than I imagined. Not only had she cheated on me 20 years ago, but it seemed she was doing it again, right under my nose. As I grappled with this new reality, a thought struck me. What if our kids knew? Did Emily and Josh sense something was off? Had they been keeping secrets too? The walls of our home, once filled with love and laughter, now felt like they were closing in on me. I knew I couldn't stay silent any longer. The time for confrontation was approaching, and I had no idea how explosive it would be. The morning sun cast long shadows across the kitchen floor as I sat staring at my coffee, its warmth doing nothing to thaw the chill inside me. The revelations from the night before played on a relentless loop in my mind. Laura had not only betrayed me once but was possibly entangled in another affair. The weight of it was suffocating. Determined to get answers, I decided to confront her that evening. Throughout the day, I went about my routine mechanically, each hour dragging longer than the last. When Laura finally walked through the door, she was on her phone, laughing at something that was said on the other end. Yes, tonight works. See you then, she said before hanging up. Noticing me, she gave a fleeting smile. Oh, you're home. Who was that? I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. Just a friend from work, she replied dismissively, heading towards the stairs. Which friend? I pressed. She paused, turning to face me with an annoyed expression. Why the sudden interest in my coworkers? Maybe because I feel like I don't know what's going on in my own house anymore. I shot back. She rolled her eyes. Don't be dramatic, Michael. Not everything is about you. Funny you should say that, I said, pulling out her old journal and placing it on the table. Care to explain this? Her face paled for a split second before she composed herself. Where did you find that? In the study, while I was planning to surprise you with that reading nook you've always wanted, I replied. Seems I've uncovered more surprises than I bargained for. She walked over and snatched the journal. You had no right to go through my things. And you had no right to deceive me for 20 years, I exclaimed, the frustration spilling over. I know about Daniel, and I'm not blind to what's happening with Jason. She laughed mockingly. Oh, please. Daniel was a fling ages ago. You weren't exactly husband of the year back then. So it's my fault now? I asked incredulously. Maybe if you weren't so boring and predictable, I wouldn't have needed to find excitement elsewhere. She sneered. I felt a surge of anger. Our marriage vows meant nothing to you? She shrugged. Vows are just words. People change. I changed. Apparently into someone I don't recognize. I said quietly. Spare me the pity party, she snapped. If you're so hurt, maybe we should just end this charade. At that moment, our son Josh walked in, earbuds dangling around his neck. Hey, is everything okay? Laura shot me a warning glance. Everything's fine. Just adult stuff. I took a deep breath. Actually, Josh, your mother and I need to discuss something important. She cut in sharply. No, we don't. Michael is just overreacting. Josh looked confused. Overreacting about what? Nothing that concerns you, she insisted, grabbing her purse. I'm going out. Where are you going? I demanded. Out, she repeated coldly. Don't wait up. With that, she brushed past Josh and headed out the door, leaving an awkward silence in her wake. Dad, Josh asked hesitantly. What's going on? I sighed, rubbing my temples. Your mother and I are having some issues. He sat down across from me. Is it serious? I looked into my son's eyes, the same eyes that once looked up to me without a hint of worry. It might be. He nodded slowly. I had a feeling something was off. Emily mentioned Mom's been distant lately, so they both had noticed. We'll figure it out, I said, trying to sound reassuring. After Josh retreated to his room, I was left alone in the empty kitchen. The confrontation hadn't gone as planned. Instead of answers, I was left with more uncertainty and a growing realization that Laura had no remorse for her actions. Determined not to let her dismiss the situation, I decided to dig deeper. I went back to her laptop, searching for any clues that could explain her indifference. Hidden among mundane files was a password-protected folder. After several failed attempts, I tried our anniversary date. It opened. Inside were photos and messages that confirmed my worst fears. There were pictures of her with Jason in places she had told me she was visiting for work, laughing together on a beach, sharing intimate moments that should have been ours. One message stood out. Can't wait until you're finally free from that tedious life. Think of all the adventures we'll have without any baggage. Baggage. That's what she called our life together. My hands shook as I closed the laptop. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone who saw me and our family as obstacles to her happiness. A mix of rage and sorrow washed over me. I knew then that saving our marriage might not be possible, but I wasn't going to let her walk away without facing the consequences of her actions. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I never thought I'd call. A divorce attorney. As the line connected, I felt a strange sense of clarity. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about protecting what was left of my family and finding a way forward, even if that meant leaving Laura behind. The following morning, I awoke to an empty bed and a heavy heart. Laura hadn't returned home, and her absence spoke volumes. I glanced at the clock. 7 a.m. The house was unusually quiet, the silence only broken by the faint hum of the refrigerator. Determined to take control of the situation, I decided to visit Emily. Our daughter had always been perceptive, and perhaps she could shed some light on Laura's behavior. I grabbed my keys and headed out, the drive filled with a mix of anxiety and resolve. When I arrived at Emily's apartment, she greeted me with a surprised smile. Dad, this is unexpected. Everything okay? I tried to muster a reassuring expression. Just wanted to see my favorite daughter. She chuckled. I'm your only daughter. As we settled into her cozy living room, I noticed photos of our family adorning the walls, reminders of happier times. Emily handed me a cup of coffee and sat across from me, her eyes searching mine. Something's on your mind, she observed. I sighed. Emily, have you noticed anything different about your mother lately? She hesitated. Well, she's been a bit distant. I thought maybe it was work stress. There's more to it, I admitted. I discovered that she had an affair years ago, and I think she's involved with someone else now. Her eyes widened in shock. What? Are you sure? I nodded, explaining the journal, the emails, and the confrontation. Emily listened intently, her expression shifting from disbelief to hurt. I can't believe she would do this, she said softly. Have you talked to Josh? Only briefly. He knows something's wrong, but not the details, I replied. She took a deep breath. Dad, I'm so sorry you're going through this. What are you going to do? I'm considering a divorce, I admitted. But I wanted to talk to you and your brother first. Emily reached out and squeezed my hand. Whatever you decide, we'll support you. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Meet me at the cafe on 5th Avenue at noon. We need to talk. I showed the message to Emily. I think it's from Jason. Are you going to go? She asked. I need answers, I said firmly. As noon approached, I made my way to the cafe, unsure of what awaited me. The bustling city life contrasted sharply with the turmoil inside me. When I arrived, a man in his early 40s stood up from a corner table and waved me over. Michael? He inquired. Jason, I presume, I responded, taking a seat across from him. He looked nervous, fidgeting with his coffee cup. I didn't come here to cause trouble. I thought we should talk. About what? I asked, keeping my tone steady. Laura hasn't been honest with you, or with me, he began. She told me you were separated and that the divorce was almost finalized. I stared at him, processing his words. We're not separated. She never mentioned divorce until last night. He shook his head. I had no idea. She made it seem like you both had moved on. I'm sorry if I've caused any pain. Believe me, the responsibility isn't solely yours, I replied. But why reach out to me now? Because I found out she's been seeing someone else besides me, he confessed. I thought I was the only one, but apparently, she's been involved with multiple people. The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. Laura's betrayal was deeper than I imagined. I don't know what to say, I murmured. I wanted you to know the truth, Jason said sincerely. I ended things with her once I realized what was happening. I nodded slowly. Thank you for telling me. As I left the cafe, a whirlwind of emotions swirled within me. Anger, betrayal, but oddly enough, a sense of solidarity with a man who was also deceived by Laura's actions. Upon returning home, I found Laura sitting in the living room, scrolling through her phone as if nothing had happened. She glanced up briefly. You were out early. I met with Jason, I stated plainly. She raised an eyebrow. Spying on me now? He told me everything, I continued. Not just about your relationship with him, but others as well. She smirked. So you've been busy. What do you want, Michael? An apology? I want to understand why, I said, trying to keep my composure. Why would you do this to our family? She set her phone down and looked at me with an unapologetic gaze. Because I wanted more. More excitement, more freedom. You were content with mediocrity, and I refused to be shackled by it. At the expense of our marriage? Our children? I asked incredulously. Don't be so naive, she retorted. People evolve. Our marriage was a convenience, nothing more. Her words cut deep, each one stripping away the illusions I had clung to. So what now? I asked. Do you want a divorce? She shrugged. If that's what you want. Frankly, it would make things easier for me. A moment of silence enveloped us. I realized then that the woman standing before me was a stranger. Someone who felt no remorse, no empathy. Fine, I said quietly. I'll have the papers drawn up. Good, she replied, picking up her phone. Glad we could finally agree on something. As she left the room, I felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. The marriage I thought I had was gone. But perhaps now I could begin to heal. Later that evening, I gathered Emily and Josh at the house to explain the situation. It was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had. But they deserved honesty. I'm filing for divorce, I told them. Your mother and I have grown apart, and there are things that can't be repaired. Emily nodded solemnly, while Josh looked down, processing the news. Is there anything we can do? He asked. Just be there for each other, I said. We'll get through this as a family. As the night wore on, the three of us shared stories, memories, and even some laughter. It wasn't the family dynamic I had envisioned, but it was real, and it was ours. In the midst of the pain, I found a glimmer of hope, a chance to rebuild and focus on the relationships that truly mattered. The days that followed were a blur of legal consultations and emotional exhaustion. I had started the process of filing for divorce, and the reality of it all was beginning to sink in. Laura moved into the guest room, and our interactions were limited to terse exchanges about household necessities. One evening, as I was sorting through some financial documents, I received an unexpected call from an unknown number. Hesitating for a moment, I decided to answer. "Hello, is this Michael Anderson?" A woman's voice inquired. "Yes, this is he." "Who's calling?" I replied. "My name is Jennifer Collins. I believe we have someone in common, Laura." Surprised, I asked, "How do you know Laura?" She took a deep breath. "It's a bit complicated, but I thought you should know that she's been involved with my husband, Peter. I found your number in her phone records." Another layer of betrayal unfolded before me. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, rubbing my temples. "I had no idea." "Neither did I until recently," Jennifer admitted. "I confronted Peter and he confessed. I thought you deserved to know." "Thank you for reaching out," I said sincerely. This seems to be a pattern with her. After we hung up, I sat there contemplating the extent of Laura's deceit. It wasn't just one or two affairs. It was a web of infidelity that spanned years and involved multiple families. The realization ignited a newfound determination within me. I wasn't just ending a marriage. I was uncovering a series of manipulations that affected more lives than my own. The next morning, I decided it was time to have a candid conversation with our children about everything. Emily and Josh arrived at the house, sensing the urgency in my voice when I asked them to come over. As we gathered around the dining table, I began. "There's more you need to know about what's been happening between your mother and me." I explained everything: Laura's multiple affairs, the contact from Jennifer, and the impact it was having on other families. Emily's eyes welled up with tears, while Josh clenched his fists in anger. "I can't believe she would do this," Emily whispered. "To all of us." Josh stood up abruptly. "She needs to be held accountable. This isn't right." "I agree," I said, "but we need to handle this carefully. Our priority should be to support each other." Just then, the front door opened, and Laura walked in carrying shopping bags, acting as if nothing was amiss. Upon seeing us all together, she raised an eyebrow. "Well, isn't this a cozy family meeting?" she remarked sarcastically. "Mom, we need to talk," Josh said firmly. She scoffed. "Oh, spare me the intervention. I've had enough of the dramatics." "How can you be so indifferent?" Emily asked, her voice shaking. "Do our feelings mean nothing to you?" Laura rolled her eyes. "I've spent years catering to everyone's needs but my own. It's about time I did what I wanted." "At the expense of your family?" I interjected. "Do you even hear yourself?" She dropped her bags on the floor. "You all act like I'm some villain. People change. Lives evolve. Get over it." Her blatant disregard for our emotions was the final straw. "Laura, this isn't just about you wanting something different. You've hurt people, lied to us, to others without any remorse," I said. She crossed her arms. "I'm done with this conversation. If you all can't accept me for who I am, that's your problem." Without another word, she stormed upstairs, leaving the three of us in stunned silence. Emily broke down, and I pulled her into a comforting embrace. "It's going to be okay," I whispered, though I wasn't entirely sure how. Over the next few days, Laura's behavior became increasingly erratic. She began hosting late-night gatherings at the house without informing us, inviting strangers who treated our home like a hotel. The situation was becoming untenable. One afternoon, I returned home to find the locks changed. Confused and frustrated, I called Laura. She answered on the third ring. "Why are the locks changed?" I demanded. "Oh, I forgot to mention. I had them replaced. You'll have to find somewhere else to stay," she said nonchalantly. "You can't be serious. This is still my house," I retorted. "Actually, it's in my name," she replied smugly. "Maybe you should have paid more attention to the paperwork over the years." Realization dawned on me. She had been planning this for a long time, maneuvering assets and manipulating documents to her advantage. Furious, I said, "This isn't over. You can't just push me out of my own home. Watch me," she snapped before hanging up. Left with no immediate options, I headed to David's place. My best friend opened the door, concern etched on his face. "Mike, what's going on?" he asked. I explained the latest developments, and he shook his head in disbelief. "This is beyond anything I imagined. You need to take legal action immediately." "I've already started the process, but she keeps blindsiding me," I admitted. "Stay here as long as you need," David offered. "We'll figure this out." That evening, as I contemplated my next steps, I received an email from my attorney. He had uncovered evidence that Laura had been siphoning money from our joint accounts into an offshore account. She was not just emotionally manipulative, but also engaging in fraudulent activities. Armed with this information, we expedited the legal proceedings. Restraining orders were filed, and the courts froze the assets pending investigation. A week later, Laura was served with legal documents. Enraged, she called me repeatedly, leaving voicemails filled with threats and accusations. "You think you can ruin me?" she screamed in one message. "You'll regret this, Michael." But the tide had turned. With the support of my children and friends, I was no longer standing alone against her manipulations. One afternoon, Emily approached me with a box. "I found this in Mom's storage unit," she said. "I thought you should have it." Inside were old photographs, letters, and mementos from the early days of our relationship. Reminders of who Laura used to be before everything changed. As I sifted through the memories, I felt a mix of nostalgia and sorrow. "Do you think she ever loved us?" Josh asked quietly. "I believe she did in her own way," I replied. "But somewhere along the line, she lost sight of what truly mattered." Emily placed a hand on my shoulder. "We're here for you, Dad. We'll get through this together." Their unwavering support strengthened my resolve. While the path ahead was uncertain, I knew that we had the resilience to face whatever came next. In the midst of the chaos, I received a letter from Laura. Expecting more vitriol, I was surprised to find a handwritten note. "Michael, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Don't bother looking for me. Perhaps one day you'll understand that I needed to escape the confines of our life. This was never about you, it was about me finding myself. Take care, Laura." As I folded the letter, I felt an unexpected sense of closure. Laura had made her choice, and now it was time for me to make mine. I looked at Emily and Josh. "How about we take a trip? Just the three of us?" They exchanged hopeful glances. "I think that's a great idea," Emily agreed. "Absolutely," Josh added. "We could all use a change of scenery." With that decision, a weight lifted from my shoulders. It was time to start healing and to focus on the future. A future defined not by betrayal and loss, but by the strength and love of the family we still had. The morning sun filtered through the curtains of David's guest room, casting a warm glow that contrasted sharply with the turmoil in my life. I had spent the night tossing and turning, my mind replaying the events of the past weeks. Laura's departure left a void, but also a strange sense of relief. The storm had passed, and now it was time to navigate the aftermath. Over breakfast, David handed me a steaming mug of coffee. "How are you holding up?" he asked gently. I took a sip, savoring the comforting bitterness. "Better than I expected. It's surreal, but I feel like a weight has been lifted." He nodded. "You've been through a lot. What's your next move?" "I've been thinking about that," I replied. "I want to focus on rebuilding my life and strengthening my relationship with Emily and Josh. Maybe even consider counseling to help process everything." "That's a wise decision," David agreed. "You're not alone in this." Later that day, I met with my attorney to finalize the divorce proceedings. With the evidence of Laura's financial misconduct and infidelity, the legal process moved swiftly. The assets were being divided equitably, and protective measures were put in place to ensure she couldn't cause further harm. As I left the attorney's office, my phone rang. It was Josh. "Hey, Dad. Emily and I were wondering if you'd like to join us for dinner tonight. We thought it might be nice to get together." A smile spread across my face. "I'd love that. Where should we meet?" "How about that Italian place we used to go to when we were kids?" he suggested. "Perfect choice. I'll see you both there at 7. The restaurant was a cozy, familiar haven filled with the aroma of freshly baked bread and rich tomato sauce. Emily and Josh were already seated at a corner table when I arrived. Their faces lit up as they saw me approach. "Glad you could make it," Emily said, giving me a warm hug. As we settled in, the conversation flowed easily. We reminisced about family vacations, shared stories from their childhood, and even laughed about the time our dog, Buddy, had chased the mailman down the street. "Despite everything that's happened, I'm grateful we have each other," Josh said, raising his glass in a toast. "To new beginnings," I echoed, clinking my glass with theirs. After dinner, we took a leisurely stroll through the nearby park. The moon cast a silvery glow on the pond, and the sound of crickets filled the air. "Dad, have you thought about what you might do next?" Emily asked. "I've been considering taking some time off work," I admitted. "Maybe travel a bit, explore hobbies I've neglected." Josh grinned. "Remember how you always wanted to learn photography?" I chuckled. "Yes, I suppose now is as good a time as any to pick up a new skill." Emily linked her arm with mine. "You should go for it. And who knows, maybe we can plan a family trip somewhere scenic. It could be therapeutic for all of us." "I'd like that," I said, feeling a warmth that had been missing for too long. In the weeks that followed, life began to settle into a new rhythm. I moved into a modest but comfortable apartment not far from Emily and Josh. The space was my own, a blank canvas where I could start afresh. I enrolled in a photography class at the local community center. The instructor, Karen, was a passionate and patient teacher who made the learning process enjoyable. Immersing myself in the art of capturing moments helped me see the world from new perspectives. One afternoon, while photographing a bustling street market, I bumped into Jennifer, the woman who had informed me about Laura's involvement with her husband. "Michael?" she asked, surprised. "Jennifer, hello?" I replied. "Fancy meeting you here." We decided to grab a coffee and catch up. She shared that she, too, was navigating life after her divorce. "It's been challenging, but also liberating in a way," she admitted. "I can relate," I said. "Focusing on personal growth has been helpful." As we parted ways, she smiled. "Perhaps we'll run into each other again." "Perhaps," I agreed, feeling a subtle sense of connection. Back at home, I received a call from my mother-in-law, Margaret. "Michael, I heard about everything that's happened." "I'm so sorry," she said softly. "Thank you, Margaret. It's been difficult, but we're managing." She sighed. "I wish I could say I was surprised by Laura's actions, but we've been distant for years. I want you to know that you and the kids are still family to me." Her words touched me. "That means a lot. You're always welcome in our lives." As the months passed, the legal matters were finalized. Laura had moved to another city, and communication with her became infrequent and formal, limited to necessary discussions about unresolved matters. One day, I received an unexpected letter from her. Inside was a brief note. "Michael, I heard you're doing well. I'm glad. Perhaps someday we'll find closure. Best, Laura." I pondered her words, unsure of how to feel. Closure was something I had been seeking, but I realized it wouldn't come from her. It had to come from within. That evening, I joined Emily and Josh for dinner at my apartment. We cooked together, filling the space with laughter and the aroma of home-cooked food. "To us," Josh said, raising his glass, "we've come a long way." "Indeed we have," I agreed. "And I'm proud of both of you." Emily smiled. "We're proud of you too, Dad. You've shown us what resilience looks like." As we sat together, I felt a deep sense of contentment. The journey had been arduous, but it led us to a place of understanding and unity. Later that night, I reflected on the twists and turns my life had taken. While the betrayal and loss were painful, they also opened doors to new opportunities and strengthened the bonds with those who truly mattered. I decided to channel my experiences into something positive. With encouragement from my photography instructor, I began working on a photo series titled Reflections, capturing images that represented healing and transformation. The project gained attention in local art circles, and I was invited to showcase my work at a gallery exhibition. Surrounded by my photographs, I felt a sense of accomplishment and renewal. At the opening night, familiar faces filled the room. David, my children, even Jennifer, who had become a friend over time. "This is incredible," Emily said, admiring a photo of a lone tree standing strong amidst a stormy landscape. "It's a metaphor for resilience," I explained. She hugged me tightly. "You've turned adversity into art. Mom might have caused us pain, but she didn't break us." "You're right," I agreed. "We chose to rise above it." As the evening drew to a close, I stood outside the gallery, looking up at the stars. The chapter with Laura had ended, but a new one was unfolding. One filled with hope, growth, and the promise of better days ahead. In that moment, I realized that while we can't control the actions of others, we can choose how we respond. By embracing change and focusing on what truly matters, we find the strength to heal and the courage to move forward. The day of the gallery exhibition marked a significant milestone. Not just for me, but for everyone who had been part of this tumultuous journey. The event was a culmination of months of hard work, self-discovery, and healing. As I stood amidst the crowd, the buzz of conversation and the soft glow of ambient lighting created an atmosphere of hope and renewal. Emily and Josh were by my side, their support unwavering. "Dad, look around," Josh said, gesturing to the guests admiring the photographs. "You've touched so many people with your work." I smiled, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you both." Just then, Karen, my photography instructor, approached us. "Michael, there's someone here who wants to meet you," she said, her eyes twinkling with intrigue. She led me to a corner where an elegantly dressed woman stood, her gaze fixed on one of my pieces titled Crossroads, a photograph capturing a forked path in a serene forest. "Your work is captivating," she remarked as I approached. "There's so much emotion behind each image." "Thank you," I replied. "Every photograph tells a part of my story." She extended her hand. "I'm Elizabeth. I'm the director of a community arts program, and I'd love to discuss featuring your work in our upcoming showcase." Surprised and honored, I shook her hand. I'd be delighted to talk more about it. As the evening progressed, I mingled with guests, each conversation reinforcing the sense that I was on the right path. Even David pulled me aside at one point. "You know, Mike, I've never seen you this energized. It's like you've found your calling." "Perhaps I have," I acknowledged. "It's amazing how adversity can lead to unexpected opportunities." Later, while taking a moment to myself on the balcony, I gazed up at the night sky. The stars shimmered like beacons of possibility. Emily joined me, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders to ward off the evening chill. "Penny, for your thoughts," she said softly. "I'm just reflecting on how much has changed," I admitted. "A year ago, I felt like my world was falling apart. Now, I see that it was actually the beginning of something new." She nodded. "Life has a way of surprising you. I'm proud of how far you've come." "Thank you, sweetheart. That means a lot." She hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "Have you thought about forgiveness? Not for Mom's sake, but for your own peace of mind." I considered her question carefully. "I've grappled with that. Holding on to anger only prolongs the pain. I may not forget what happened, but I can choose to let go of the resentment." She smiled gently. "I think that's a wise decision." As the event wound down, I felt a sense of closure. The chapter that began with betrayal and heartache was concluding, making way for a future defined by growth and positivity. In the weeks that followed, I became involved with Elizabeth's community arts program, teaching photography workshops to aspiring artists. Sharing my passion with others brought a new layer of fulfillment to my life. One Saturday morning, while setting up for a class, I received an unexpected letter in the mail. It was from Laura. "Michael, I heard about your exhibition and wanted to offer my congratulations. Seems you've found your passion. I won't pretend that everything can be mended between us, but I hope you found happiness. Sincerely, Laura." I read the letter twice, searching for any lingering emotions. Surprisingly, I felt a sense of serenity. The pain that once gripped me had loosened its hold, replaced by acceptance. Folding the letter, I placed it in a drawer, not out of avoidance, but as a symbolic gesture of putting the past to rest. That evening, I hosted a small gathering at my apartment with friends and family to celebrate the new ventures in our lives. The atmosphere was warm and filled with laughter. At one point, Jennifer pulled me aside. "It's amazing to see how life can turn around," she said. "You've been an inspiration." "Thank you, Jennifer. I could say the same about you," I replied. "Perhaps our paths crossed for a reason." She smiled. "Perhaps they did." As the night drew to a close, I took a moment to observe the people around me, each one playing a part in the tapestry of my renewed life. Emily was discussing travel plans with Josh, their sibling camaraderie stronger than ever. David was entertaining guests with his characteristic humor, and Karen was engaged in a lively debate about art with Elizabeth. I realized then that happiness isn't a destination but a journey, a series of moments stitched together by the choices we make and the relationships we nurture. Stepping out onto the balcony, I breathed in the crisp night air. The city lights stretched out before me, a testament to the endless possibilities that lay ahead. Emily joined me, her eyes reflecting the same contentment I felt. "Thinking deep thoughts again?" she teased. "Just appreciating the moment," I replied. She rested her head on my shoulder. "I'm glad you're happy, Dad. You deserve it." "I am happy," I confirmed, "and I have all of you to thank for helping me get here." She looked up at me. "What's next on your adventure list?" I chuckled. "Well, I was thinking of organizing a photography trip, maybe explore the countryside, capture new landscapes. Interested in joining?" "Absolutely," she agreed enthusiastically. "Count me in." As we rejoined the party, I felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The trials of the past had forged a stronger, wiser version of myself. While the scars remained, they no longer dictated my narrative. In the end, I learned that resilience isn't about bouncing back to who you were. It's about becoming someone stronger because of what you've endured. Life, with all its unpredictability, had given me a second chance to embrace joy, pursue my passions, and cherish the relationships that truly mattered. And so, surrounded by the love and support of those closest to me, I stepped confidently into the future, ready to write the next chapters of my life with hope, courage, and an open heart. I didn't think much about it the first time I found Karen's phone locked away in the bathroom drawer. She was always misplacing things, always leaving her keys in the fridge or the remote in the dishwasher. But it started happening more frequently. Her phone, once a permanent fixture in her hand, was suddenly never around when I asked her to check something. And the password changed twice. One night, she left for book club. I didn't even know she was in one. Something about meeting up with an old college friend who'd invited her to join. I wasn't suspicious, not yet at least. Karen wasn't that kind of person, or so I thought. I had no reason to think she'd be out doing anything other than drinking cheap wine and discussing whatever novel was hot on Oprah's list that month. But here's where things got strange. Around 11 p.m., I heard a noise. Not from outside or anything inside the house. A soft, repetitive thump. I was in bed, scrolling through news articles when I heard it, coming from the closet. I got up, thinking maybe something had fallen, and there, on the top shelf, was a small box. I had never seen that box before. It wasn't Karen's style. Dark, plain, with no markings. And it was heavier than I expected when I pulled it down. I remember my hands shaking a little as I opened it, not knowing why I felt so nervous. Inside, I found a phone. Not Karen's current one. This was an older model, one she hadn't used in at least a year, maybe longer. And yet, there it was, with the screen lighting up at that exact moment, buzzing with a notification. I hesitated, then swiped it open. No password on this one. The first message hit me like a freight train. "Tonight was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. Sent just an hour ago." My heart pounded in my chest. I scrolled through the chat. Each message between Karen and someone named Ryan felt like a punch to the gut. There were months of messages. They weren't just flirty, they were explicit, detailed. Plans. Memories of things I had no idea she'd done. Trips. Meetups. Lies stacked on lies. I should have dropped the phone. I should have walked away. But I couldn't stop reading. I felt like my entire world was collapsing in real time. There was one message, from her, dated about 2 weeks ago, that nearly broke me. "John still doesn't know anything. He's so clueless. I think he'd actually believe me if I told him I had a twin. My name, John. Clueless? I wasn't clueless. I just didn't want to see what was right in front of me. This wasn't just a fling. This was planned. Calculated. She was laughing at me behind my back, mocking me while she went about her double life with this Ryan guy. I didn't hear the front door open. I didn't hear her come in. I was standing there, frozen, with the phone still in my hand when she walked into the bedroom, carrying a half-empty bottle of wine, grinning like she'd just won the lottery. The moment she saw me with the phone, the grin vanished. She knew. She knew I knew. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. But instead, I just stood there, staring at her. My mind raced, filled with a million things I could say, but nothing came out. "You went through my things," she said, her voice cool, almost amused. Not panicked. Not remorseful. No, she looked like she'd been caught sneaking an extra dessert, not having a full-blown affair. Couldn't believe it. She wasn't even trying to deny it. There wasn't a trace of guilt in her eyes. Just this cold, calculating calmness that chilled me to the bone. "You're cheating on me?" I finally managed to say, my voice breaking. She tilted her head, as if I'd asked something stupid. "What does it look like, John?" I took a step forward, my whole body trembling. "Who the hell is Ryan?" She rolled her eyes. "Ryan? That's what you're focused on right now." She set the wine bottle down on the dresser like we were having some casual conversation. "Not the complete annihilation of our marriage. Why don't you ask yourself why you didn't notice earlier? You've been so wrapped up in your little routine, you didn't even see what was right in front of you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was turning this on me. "This is my fault? You're blaming me?" My voice was rising, and I couldn't stop it. "You've been screwing around behind my back for months, and you're blaming me for not noticing?" She shrugged, like none of this mattered. "What did you expect, John? You're boring. Same thing every day. You don't challenge me. You don't excite me. Ryan?" She trailed off, her lips curling into a smirk. "Ryan gives me what I need." It was like she was intentionally twisting the knife. I took a deep breath, trying to keep control, trying to process everything at once. But I couldn't. My head was spinning. "So that's it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "You've been lying to me for, what, a year? 2 years? And you're not even sorry?" Karen laughed. Actually laughed. "John, grow up. This isn't some soap opera. People cheat. It happens. I'm just better at it than most." I stared at her, not recognizing the woman in front of me. This wasn't the Karen I married. This was someone else. Someone I didn't know. Someone who had been playing me for a fool while living her double life without a care in the world. I didn't say another word. Couldn't. I just turned and walked out of the room, my chest tight, my mind blank. The last thing I heard before I left the house was her voice, dripping with sarcasm. "Don't wait up, John. I'll be at Ryan's tomorrow." Couldn't sleep that night. My mind kept replaying her words, that cruel smirk on her face, as if this was all a joke to her. I sat in the living room, lights off, staring into the dark, trying to piece together how long she had been laughing at me behind my back. All I knew was that I had to do something. But what? What do you do when the woman you've built your life with looks you dead in the eye and says you're too boring to love? The next day I called in sick at work. Karen left early, humming to herself as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't shredded everything I believed about our marriage the night before. She didn't even ask why I was still there, sitting on the couch, unshaven, still wearing the same clothes from last night. She just glanced at me, grabbed her keys, and walked out the door. I decided I needed answers. If she wasn't going to give me the truth, I'd find it myself. So, after she left, I started digging. I went through her things. Every drawer, every box, every dusty corner of our home I'd never bothered to check before. And that's when I found it. A black folder hidden inside her work bag, marked with some innocuous client name, but it wasn't client files. No, it was far worse. Inside were printouts, hotel reservations, photos, emails, plans for weekends she had told me were work trips, girls' nights out, or some charity event she supposedly had to attend. Everything was laid out right there, her whole affair, meticulously documented. There were even receipts for gifts she'd bought for Ryan. Expensive stuff, things I didn't even know she'd spent money on. But the part that truly made my stomach drop? 2 plane tickets, for her and him, to Mexico. This wasn't just a fling. She was planning something big, something permanent. I sat there for what felt like hours, holding the plane tickets in my hands, feeling the strange numbness creep over me. She was leaving. And worse, she wasn't planning on telling me. She was going to run away with this guy, disappear like our life together had never existed. What was her plan? Leave me a note? Just vanish? When she came home that evening, I was waiting. I had all the evidence spread out on the table, and when she walked in, her eyes locked onto the folder immediately. The smirk she'd worn last night was gone. For the first time, she looked nervous. "What's this?" I asked, holding up the plane tickets. She blinked, her expression flat, like she was trying to calculate her next move. "Don't make this a bigger deal than it needs to be, John." My chest tightened. "You're running away? With him? You were just going to leave." She didn't answer right away. She walked over, sat down across from me, and crossed her arms like we were negotiating a business deal. "John, we both know this has been coming for a while. It's not working. You know it, I know it. You're not happy, and neither am I." I felt a laugh bubbling up in my throat. One of those dry, humorless ones that you can't control. "I'm not happy? You've been sleeping with another guy for months, and now you're planning to ditch me and our daughter to go live in some fantasy with him. And you think I'm the one who's unhappy?" Her eyes narrowed. "You never once asked me what I wanted. You never once thought about what I need. You've been coasting through this marriage, thinking you're doing enough, but you haven't been enough for years." That was it. The gloves were off now. "You're unbelievable," I said, my voice shaking. "You're blaming me for your affair? For planning to run off with some guy, leaving your daughter behind like she's an afterthought?" Karen leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper, icy and sharp. "John, you never really saw me. You just saw what you wanted to see. A wife who stayed at home, who played the role. But I'm not that person. Not anymore. I've changed, and you haven't. Ryan, he sees me. He knows who I am." I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up, shoving the folder toward her. "You want him? Fine, go. But you're not taking Lily. I'll fight you for her. I'll burn our life to the ground if I have to. But she's not coming with you. Not after what you've done." For the first time, she hesitated. There was a flicker of something in her eyes, doubt maybe, or fear. But just as quickly, she steeled herself again. "We'll see about that," she said quietly, standing up and walking out of the room. I watched her go, my heart pounding in my chest, wondering what kind of hell was coming next. The next morning, Karen was gone before I even woke up. She didn't leave a note, didn't text, nothing. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the empty spot where her car usually was, wondering if this was it. Was she at Ryan's now? Was she already on her way out of my life, leaving me with nothing but our daughter and the wreckage of our marriage? I half expected a phone call from her lawyer or maybe some surprise move, like packing up the house while I was at work. Nothing seemed impossible anymore. But the day passed, and Karen didn't come back. It was like I was living in a waiting room, just sitting there, tense, ready for something to explode. When Lily asked where Mommy was, I muttered something about work and distracted her with cartoons, my heart sinking every time she looked at me with those big, innocent eyes. That evening, my phone buzzed. It was Karen. Finally, the message was short. "We need to talk. Be home in an hour." I stared at the screen for a minute, replaying all the possibilities in my head. Was this it? Was she going to tell me she was leaving, that the plane tickets were for tomorrow? Or had she and Ryan already made some grand plan to take Lily too? My mind raced as I tried to brace for whatever bombshell was about to drop. She walked in like nothing had happened. Calm, collected. A completely different person from the woman who had smirked at me 2 nights ago, or the one who had looked terrified when I found the tickets. She sat down at the kitchen table, as if she was about to discuss dinner plans. "I'm leaving," she said, like it was just another Tuesday announcement. "But I want to talk about Lily." The air left my lungs. There it was, the moment I had been dreading. My fists clenched under the table, and I fought to keep my voice steady. "You're leaving her with me." Karen shook her head, almost laughing at the suggestion. "No, John, I'm not just walking away. We need to be adults about this. We'll share custody. Split time." I felt the rage building in my chest. "Share? You're the one who's been sneaking around for months, lying to my face, and now you want to share custody? After planning to run off with some guy and leave us both behind?" Her face hardened, and her voice dropped to that cold, detached tone again. "You think I'm just going to disappear, John? I'm her mother. No judge is going to strip me of custody just because you're upset. Upset? I stood up so fast the chair nearly toppled over. You're abandoning your family, Karen. You were going to leave us without saying a word. Don't act like you care about being a mother now, just because you think it's convenient for you. She didn't flinch. Not once. She just sat there, eyes on me like she was completely in control. I'm not abandoning anyone. This is about me finally living the life I want. You just don't like that you're not part of it. I was shaking with anger, but I couldn't let it show. Not too much. I needed to be clear-headed. I needed to stay sharp. You're not taking Lily? I repeated, voice as steady as I could manage. I'll fight you for her if I have to. Karen let out a long sigh, like I was a child she was tired of arguing with. John, you don't have a choice. You're not going to win this. I don't know what came over me in that moment, but I leaned across the table, meeting her eyes dead on, and said, You have no idea what I'm capable of. For the first time, I saw something shift in her expression. Not fear exactly, but something close. Maybe uncertainty. I'd never spoken to her like that before, never looked at her like she was the enemy. And that's what she had become. I realized it in that second. Karen wasn't just leaving me. She was about to wage war. But so was I. She stood up, the conversation clearly over in her mind. I'll call my lawyer tomorrow, she said, grabbing her bag. We'll work out a schedule. Before she could leave, I stopped her. Tell me one thing, I said, my voice low, barely controlled. When you were with him, when you were sneaking around behind my back, did you ever think about us? About your daughter? Karen paused in the doorway, her back to me. For a moment I thought maybe there was a shred of guilt in her, that she might turn around and apologize or say something human. But she didn't. She just walked out without another word, leaving me standing there alone in the kitchen, fists clenched, heart pounding, the sound of her footsteps fading into the night. I realized then, this was going to get ugly. The next few days were a blur. Every minute felt like it was stretched thin with tension, the air in the house heavy and suffocating. Karen came and went as she pleased, barely acknowledging me. Her movements around the house reduced to a silent parade of indifference. We didn't speak. I didn't ask where she was going, and she didn't offer any explanations. It was like we were ghosts haunting the same space. But I knew the storm was coming. It hit me the next evening when I was giving Lily a bath. My phone buzzed on the bathroom counter, lighting up with a notification. A text from an unknown number. I picked it up, thinking maybe it was someone from work. But it wasn't work. You think you can keep her from me? Think again. My heart stopped. Who the hell was this? Another message immediately followed. You want a war? You'll get one. I sat there, my hands shaking, staring at the screen. It wasn't hard to guess who it was. Ryan. Karen must have told him what I'd said, that I wasn't going to let her take Lily. And now this prick was trying to intimidate me? My blood boiled. It wasn't enough that he'd been sleeping with my wife for God knows how long. Now he had the nerve to threaten me about my own daughter? I didn't respond. Instead, I turned off my phone and finished giving Lily her bath, my mind spinning with 1,000 scenarios of what I'd do to him if he ever came near her. After I tucked Lily into bed, I walked into the kitchen, where Karen was casually scrolling through her phone, sipping on a glass of wine. She didn't even look up when I entered the room. The anger that had been simmering in me all day exploded. So, you've got your boyfriend sending me threats now? That got her attention. She put her phone down and raised an eyebrow, still far too calm for someone whose life was unraveling. What are you talking about? I walked over, slammed my phone on the counter in front of her, and showed her the messages. Ryan. He thinks he can scare me into giving up on Lily. Did you put him up to this? Or is this just his idea of being your knight in shining armor? She glanced at the phone and then smirked, taking a slow sip of her wine. I didn't tell him to text you, if that's what you're asking. But if you think he's going to sit back while you try to screw me over in court, you're more naive than I thought. I could feel my hands clenching into fists, the rage burning through my veins. Naive? You think I'm naive for not letting some stranger waltz in and try to take my daughter from me? For standing up to the two of you and your disgusting little game? Karen set her glass down and stood up, her eyes cold and steady. Lily is my daughter too. You don't get to decide what's best for her just because you suddenly decided to play the role of protective father. Where was this energy when our marriage was falling apart? I took a step closer, barely able to contain myself. You want to talk about the marriage falling apart? You tore it down. You ripped everything apart when you decided to start screwing around with him. Don't you dare try to paint this like I'm the one who abandoned anything. For the first time, Karen's calm exterior cracked. Her eyes flashed with anger, and she took a step toward me, her voice sharp and biting. You never even noticed me. I was dying inside this house and you didn't care. All you did was work, come home, and pretend everything was fine. But it wasn't, John. It hasn't been for years. Ryan, he actually sees me. He gives a damn. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. All this was because she felt invisible? Because I was too busy trying to make a living for our family? I've worked my ass off for you, for us. While you were off sneaking around with him, I was doing everything I could to keep this family together. And now you're trying to throw it all away. She shook her head, her voice lowering to a dangerous whisper. This family has been broken for a long time. You just didn't want to admit it. There was a long, tense silence between us, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on the room. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, and with one more word, everything would crumble beneath me. But I couldn't stop myself. You want to run off with Ryan? Fine, go. But don't think for a second that you're taking Lily with you. I will fight you with everything I have. Karen's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a bitter smile. You really think you're going to win this, John? You think a judge is going to look at you and say, yep, let's give full custody to the guy who's been emotionally checked out for years? You don't know how this works, do you? I leaned in, my voice low, steady. You have no idea what I'm willing to do to make sure Lily stays with me. I've been quiet. I've been patient. But if you think for 1 second that I'm going to let you drag her into your mess with Ryan, you've already lost. Karen stared at me for a moment, her expression unreadable, before picking up her phone and walking out of the kitchen, the conversation clearly over in her mind. But as she left, she tossed one final grenade over her shoulder. I guess we'll see who's willing to go further. I stood there in the empty kitchen, my heart pounding, knowing that this fight had only just begun. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Lily playing in her room. I could hear her singing softly to herself, completely oblivious to the storm brewing between her parents. I lay there for a minute, staring at the ceiling, trying to shake the weight pressing down on me. The fight from last night replayed in my mind over and over. Karen's words, her smug confidence, her complete lack of remorse. It gnawed at me, twisted my insides into a knot that wouldn't loosen. I got out of bed, splashed water on my face, and tried to pull myself together. Lily didn't need to see any of this. She was innocent in all of it, and if nothing else, I had to make sure she wasn't affected by the mess her mother was creating. I could at least give her that. Karen was gone by the time I walked into the kitchen. No note, no sign of when she'd be back. Just an empty space where her car had been parked. I wasn't surprised. I was getting used to her disappearing ex. Honestly, part of me preferred it that way. The less I saw of her, the easier it was to keep my head straight, to keep myself from flying off the handle. I made breakfast for Lily, trying to act like it was any other day. But in the back of my mind, I knew things were far from normal. I was waiting for the next move, for the next hit to come. I couldn't just sit and hope for the best. If Karen was serious about fighting me for custody, I needed to be prepared. This wasn't going to be a simple divorce. It was war now. Around noon, I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, one I'd heard about through a friend who'd been through a nasty divorce himself. I knew I needed someone ruthless, someone who wouldn't just play defense but who would go on the attack if it came to that. His name was Tom Willis, and his reputation was that he didn't lose. The moment he answered the phone, I knew I had the right guy. "This is Tom. What's the situation?" he said, his voice gruff, no nonsense. I gave him the short version, my wife, the affair, the threats, and how she was trying to take our daughter. I laid it all out, and when I was done, there was a brief silence on the other end of the line. "She's playing dirty," Tom finally said, his tone sharp and calculating. "Good. That means you don't have to hold back." I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me. I wasn't alone in this anymore. "What do I need to do?" I asked. Tom was direct. "First things first, we need to gather evidence. Documentation, witnesses, anything that shows she's been unfaithful, unreliable, or neglectful as a mother. The affair will help your case, but we need to show the court that her lifestyle isn't in Lily's best interest. Do you have anything concrete? Proof of the affair. I told him about the messages, the hotel receipts, the plane tickets. He was quiet for a second, then said, "Good, that's a start. Make copies of everything. Don't let her know you have them. We're going to build a case so airtight she won't know what hit her." We talked for another 20 minutes, outlining the steps I'd need to take. Tom was already 10 steps ahead, planning, strategizing, anticipating every move Karen might make. By the time I hung up, I felt more prepared than I had since this nightmare began. But the calm didn't last long. Later that afternoon, Karen came home. She was carrying shopping bags, acting like everything was normal, like we hadn't ripped each other apart the night before. I watched her from across the living room as she unpacked, waiting for her to say something, anything that acknowledged the hell we were living in. But she didn't. She just moved around the kitchen, humming to herself. Couldn't take it. I stood up and walked over to her, planting myself between her and the counter. "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice low, barely controlled. "You're just going to pretend like nothing's happening?" She glanced up at me, her expression unreadable. "John, I don't know what you want me to say. We're getting divorced. It's not the end of the world." I felt a fire ignite in my chest. "It's not the end of the world for you because you've been planning this. You've had your escape route mapped out for months. But me, I'm just finding out my wife's been screwing around, planning to leave, and now you're trying to take our daughter from me. So, no, Karen, I don't exactly feel like going shopping and pretending this is some casual thing." She sighed, dropping the bag on the counter. "I'm not taking her from you, John. I already told you we'll share custody." I clenched my teeth. "Yeah, and I already told you that's not happening." Her eyes flicked up, and for a moment, I saw that coldness again. That same heartless look she gave me when I confronted her the first time. "You really think you're going to win this?" she asked, her voice calm but dangerous. "You're not. I've talked to a lawyer. I know how this goes. Judges don't take kids away from their mothers unless there's abuse or neglect. You've got nothing on me." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "You sure about that?" For a split second, I saw her confidence falter. It was barely a flicker, but it was there. And I knew in that moment that Tom was right. I had the upper hand. She just didn't know it yet. She stared at me for a long time, then finally turned away. "This isn't over, John." "I know," I said softly, "but you're not going to like how it ends." And with that, she grabbed her purse, walked out of the house, and left me standing there alone, knowing that this was only the beginning of something far darker than either of us could have imagined. The following days were like living in a pressure cooker, each moment tighter and more suffocating than the last. I went through my routine with Lily, but everything felt off. Every time I dropped her off at school or played with her in the evenings, I kept wondering what Karen was up to, what her next move would be. I wasn't about to let her catch me off guard. Tom had already filed the initial paperwork for custody, and we were preparing to subpoena Karen's phone records and financials. The affair alone wouldn't be enough to sway a judge, but Tom was confident that once we got our hands on more proof, we'd have a strong case. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen wasn't going to go down without a fight. One night, after Lily had gone to bed, I was sitting in the living room going through some documents Tom had sent over when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Karen. "We need to talk. Meet me at the house in an hour. I'll be alone." Alone. That word stuck out like a red flag. What did she want now? Another attempt to make me back down, to negotiate in her favor? I wasn't in the mood for more mind games, but if she was ready to talk, I figured I'd hear her out. It might give me a clue about her next move. I arrived at the house just after 10 p.m. The lights were on, and Karen's car was in the driveway. I hesitated for a second, wondering if this was some kind of setup, but then I shrugged it off. I wasn't going to let her intimidate me. I walked in to find her sitting at the kitchen table, a half-empty bottle of wine in front of her. She looked different, not calm and collected like she usually was, but almost nervous. Her eyes were darting around the room, and she was gripping her wine glass a little too tightly. "What do you want, Karen?" I asked, standing by the door, not willing to come any closer. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she took a long sip of wine, then set the glass down, staring at it as if it held some kind of answer. Finally, she looked up at me, her voice softer than I expected. I don't want this to turn ugly, John. I let out a harsh laugh. Too late for that, don't you think? She winced but didn't argue. I know things have gotten bad between us, but we don't have to drag Lily into it. I crossed my arms, narrowing my eyes at her. You're the one trying to take her from me. Karen shook her head. No, I'm not. I just want what's fair, shared custody. I don't want to fight you over this, John. I don't. For a moment, I almost believed her. There was something in her voice, a desperation I hadn't heard before. But then I remembered who I was dealing with. This was Karen. She'd lied to my face for months. She'd laughed about how clueless I was. Whatever this was, it wasn't about making peace. I stayed where I was, watching her closely. What's really going on, Karen? What do you want? She glanced down at her glass again, her fingers tracing the rim nervously. Ryan and we're not going to Mexico anymore. That's done. My eyebrows shot up in surprise. You're kidding. She shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. No, it's over. I wasn't sure how to react. Was this her latest manipulation? Was she trying to lull me into a false sense of security, make me think she was giving up, only to hit me harder later? I stayed silent, waiting for her to continue. Karen sighed heavily, pushing the wine glass away from her. I've made some mistakes, big ones, but I don't want to lose Lily, John. I can't lose her. There it was, the real reason she'd called me over. I leaned against the wall, arms still crossed, studying her. You're scared, aren't you? She met my gaze, her expression hardening. Of course I'm scared. You've been talking to lawyers, building a case, and now you've got the upper hand. I know you're going to try to take her from me. You're damn right I am. I shot back. After what you've done, you don't deserve to be in her life. Not after the lies, the cheating, the games you've played. Karen's eyes flashed with anger, but she quickly composed herself. I'm still her mother, John. You can't erase me from her life, no matter how much you hate me. I stepped forward, lowering my voice to a deadly calm. You didn't just betray me, Karen. You betrayed our family. You walked out on your daughter the moment you started sneaking around with Ryan, and you think you can just pick up the pieces now that it's convenient for you? She stood up suddenly, knocking the chair back. Her voice cracked as she spoke. I never stopped loving her. I never stopped being her mother. You don't get to decide that because I made mistakes in our marriage. Your mistakes were destroying this family, Karen. You made your choice. Now you're going to have to live with it. She shook her head, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. You think you can just win, don't you? That you'll walk into court, paint me as the villain, and take her away from me? You don't know what you're doing. I stepped closer, forcing her to stop and face me. I know exactly what I'm doing, and I'm not backing down. Not for you, not for Ryan, not for anyone. Her face twisted into something I hadn't seen before. Desperation, fear. It was like she was finally realizing that I wasn't going to be the same pushover she'd thought I was. That this wasn't going to be easy for her. For a long moment we just stood there, staring at each other, the weight of everything between us pressing down like a physical force. Then, without another word, Karen grabbed her purse and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her. I stood there in the silence, my heart still racing, my fists still clenched at my sides. The war had officially begun. The next day, everything felt like it had shifted. It wasn't just Karen and me anymore. There was a tension in the air that made every moment feel like a countdown to the inevitable explosion. I couldn't shake the image of her pacing, the desperation on her face as she realized I wasn't going to let her win this. She was losing control, and I knew it. The only question was how far she'd go to claw it back. Later that afternoon, I picked Lily up from school. She was her usual happy self, chattering away about her day, asking if we could go get ice cream. I said yes, wanting to give her some normalcy in the middle of all this chaos. As we pulled into the ice cream shop, I saw Karen's car parked in the lot. She hadn't mentioned wanting to see Lily today, hadn't texted or called. This was unplanned, unannounced. We got out of the car, and there she was, sitting at one of the outdoor tables, sunglasses on, pretending like she'd just casually shown up for ice cream at the exact same time. I knew better. This wasn't a coincidence. Lily spotted her immediately and ran over. "Mommy!" she called out, her little arms waving excitedly. Karen stood up, removing her sunglasses and giving Lily a big, fake smile that barely reached her eyes. I stood back for a second, watching them hug, knowing Karen was trying to play the part of the perfect mother now that she knew she was in danger of losing it all. I could see right through it, but Lily didn't. To her, it was just her mom, showing up for ice cream like any other day. After a few minutes, Karen looked over at me, her smile fading into something colder. "John, I didn't expect to see you here." I resisted the urge to roll my eyes. "You didn't expect me at Lily's favorite ice cream shop after school?" She ignored the sarcasm and turned her attention back to Lily. "How about Mommy joins you for ice cream today? Would you like that, sweetheart?" Lily beamed, and I could feel the ground shifting beneath me. This was Karen's move. Showing up, pretending like things were fine, manipulating Lily into thinking we were all just one big happy family again. "Sure, Mom," Lily said, pulling her toward the counter. Karen shot me a glance as she walked away, that same smug look from before creeping back onto her face. I followed them inside, trying to keep my cool. The whole situation felt staged, like Karen had been waiting for the right moment to show up, trying to wedge herself back into Lily's life, to rewrite the narrative I was carefully building with Tom's help. She knew exactly what she was doing, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. As we sat down to eat, Karen started talking to Lily in a soft, almost overly sweet voice, asking about school, friends, what she wanted to do this weekend. It was nauseating. I could barely stomach it. Finally, I couldn't hold back any longer. "Karen, we need to talk." She didn't look at me, just kept her eyes on Lily, who was happily devouring her ice cream. "Now's not the time, John. We're with Lily." "No," I said, my voice low but firm. "This is exactly the time." She finally turned to face me, her eyes narrowing. "What is it you think we need to talk about?" "Because I'm here with my daughter, and I'd rather not ruin her day." I leaned in, keeping my voice calm for Lily's sake. "You can drop the act. I know what you're doing. Showing up here like this, pretending like everything's fine, trying to push your way back into her life like you haven't been planning to leave. It's not going to work." Karen's smile disappeared completely. Her eyes flashed with anger. "I'm her mother, John. I don't need your permission to see her. She's not a pawn in whatever game you're playing." I shot back, keeping my voice as controlled as I could. "You want to see her? Fine. But you're not going to manipulate her into thinking this is normal. You don't get to walk back into her life and act like you haven't been destroying it behind the scenes." Karen's face hardened, and she glanced at Lily, making sure she wasn't paying attention. Then she leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. "You really think you can take her from me? You're living in a fantasy if you think a judge is going to strip me of custody. I'm her mother. No matter what you do, no matter what you try, I'll always be her mother." I stared at her, feeling the weight of her words settle in my gut like a punch. She was right, in a way. She was Lily's mother, and that meant this fight was going to be harder than anything I'd ever imagined. But that didn't mean I was going to back down. "You may be her mother," I said quietly, "but you stopped acting like one a long time ago." Karen's eyes flared with anger, but before she could respond, Lily chimed in. "Daddy, can we go to the park after this?" I forced a smile and nodded. "Of course, sweetie." Karen stood up, grabbing her purse, her face set in a tight, controlled mask. "I'll see you soon, Lily. Mommy has to go now." Lily hugged her, completely unaware of the silent battle going on between us. Karen gave me one last look before walking out, her heels clicking sharply on the pavement as she made her exit. I watched her go, feeling the weight of the upcoming fight settle heavily on my shoulders. I wasn't just fighting Karen anymore. I was fighting a system that was designed to favor her, to give her the upper hand simply because she was the mother. But I wasn't about to let that stop me. Not now. Not after everything I'd uncovered. As I walked Lily to the park, my phone buzzed again. I glanced down to see a message from Tom. "We've got something. Meet me tomorrow at 9. I stared at the screen, feeling a strange mix of dread and anticipation. This was it. The first real shot in the war. The next morning, I sat in Tom's office, hands gripping the armrests of the chair as he laid everything out in front of me. It was like watching pieces of a puzzle fall into place, each one more damning than the last. Emails, financial records, phone logs, everything Karen thought she had hidden, buried deep in her private life, was now spread across Tom's desk in neat, incriminating piles. Tom leaned back in his chair, a satisfied look on his face as he pushed a file toward me. "This," he said, tapping the folder, "is your ticket." I opened it and saw a series of financial transfers. Money Karen had been funneling into a private account for months, maybe even longer. Thousands of dollars, all while telling me she was strapped for cash, while making excuses about why we couldn't afford things for Lily. And the kicker? Some of those funds had been used to pay for hotels, dinners, flights, everything tied back to Ryan. My head was spinning, the sheer magnitude of her betrayal almost too much to process. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was building a life, siphoning off money from our accounts to fund her fantasy with him. Tom continued, his voice cool and steady. "We've got evidence of financial misconduct. She's been lying, hiding assets, and planning to leave with more than just your daughter. This, combined with the affair, paints a very clear picture of who she really is. No judge is going to look favorably on this, John. You're in a stronger position than you realize." I sat back, trying to let it all sink in. I had expected to find something, but not this. Not the level of deception Karen had reached. She had been quietly plotting to escape with everything, our money, our daughter, while making me look like the fool who didn't see any of it coming. Tom gave me a moment before he leaned forward, his tone shifting to something more serious. "Here's the plan. We're going to present this in court, but not all at once. We drip-feed it. Let her lawyer think they can play the sympathy card, play the loving mother angle, and when they least expect it, we hit them with the financial records. The goal is to show the judge that she's unstable, that she's not acting in the best interest of Lily. You hold firm, John. Don't show your cards too early." I nodded, my mind racing with the strategy. This was bigger than I had anticipated, but Tom was right. I had to play it smart, be patient, and make sure every move counted. "Do you think we have enough?" I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. Tom looked at me, his eyes sharp. "We have more than enough. The courts are going to see her for what she is. But you need to be prepared. This is going to get ugly." I swallowed hard, knowing exactly what that meant. Karen wasn't going to sit back and let me take everything from her. This was going to be a fight. One that would drag us through the mud. One that might hurt Lily in ways I couldn't even foresee. But there was no other option. Couldn't let Karen win. Not when it came to Lily. As I left Tom's office, my mind was racing with the weight of what was coming. I had power now, but it was a double-edged sword. Every piece of evidence was a blow to Karen, yes, but I knew it would also be a blow to Lily. The more I tore down her mother, the more fallout there would be for her. And that was something I couldn't escape. That evening, Karen came home late again. I was sitting at the kitchen table, a glass of whiskey in front of me, waiting. She walked in, glanced at me, and froze when she saw the look on my face. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low, controlled. She hesitated, then slowly walked over, setting her purse down on the counter. "What now, John? Are we really going to do this again?" I gestured to the chair across from me. "Sit." She didn't move at first, her eyes scanning my face like she was trying to read what I knew. Eventually, she sat, folding her arms across her chest like she was bracing herself for another confrontation. I leaned forward, keeping my eyes locked on hers. "I know about the account, Karen." Her face paled, just for a second, before she quickly composed herself. "What account?" "The one you've been funneling money into for months. The one you thought I wouldn't notice because you were clever enough to use it for work expenses. Except you weren't clever enough." For the first time in this entire ordeal, I saw fear in her eyes. Real fear. She didn't say anything, but her hands tightened around the edge of the table. I pressed on. "You've been taking money, Karen. Not just a little, a lot. You've been planning your escape for longer than you've been honest with me. And you weren't just planning to take Lily. You were planning to take everything." She swallowed, her voice shaky when she finally spoke. I was just trying to protect myself." I let out a bitter laugh. "Protect yourself? From what?" "From the life you were throwing away. From the family you've been lying to." Karen's composure started to crack. Her eyes filled with panic, darting around the room as if looking for a way out. A way to explain this without incriminating herself. But she knew it was too late. The evidence was overwhelming, and she had no way to wriggle out of this one. "John, I never meant for it to go this far. I just needed a backup plan." "Don't." I cut her off, my voice sharp. Don't pretend this was anything but greed. You didn't need a backup plan. You had a husband who was working his ass off to provide for you and your daughter, and you took advantage of that. You wanted out, and you wanted to take it all with you. She stared at me, speechless. I leaned back, my voice calm again. I'm giving you a chance to walk away from this, Karen. You can end this now, and I won't bring this to court. You can still have some dignity left. But if you take this to trial, I'll destroy you. I'll take Lily, I'll take the money, and I'll make sure you walk away with nothing. For a long moment, there was only silence. Karen's eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't moved. Not anymore. Finally, she stood up, wiping her face with trembling hands. You really think you're going to win this, John? I met her gaze, my expression unwavering. I already have. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her, leaving me sitting alone in the kitchen with the weight of everything that had been unleashed. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, I knew exactly where it was headed.